Merhaba arkadaşlar. We'll talk about two major primary postpositions today. So I say postpositions and I want you to learn it this way, although I don't care if you learn the linguistic terms like this or not, but there's a reason for that. Because we talked about prepositions so far in Turkish, and those are case endings, right? Dative, locative, ablative. So there are 5 of them, and we learned them. You should be comfortable about them by now. These are postpositions, and there's a difference between them in Turkish, although in English there's not. So that's why I want you to know the difference in Turkish. So we already know the prepositions, and they are attached to words in Turkish: eve, evden, right? So those are case endings. But postpositions, they come after the noun that they modify, and they're not attached to the noun. So I mean, sometimes they can be, especially this one. So we're going to talk about İçin and ile today, and ile can be attached to the word sometimes, but we'll talk about that later. And so yes, I mean it is commonly written separately. Okay, so İçin means for in Turkish, but in the way it's used, there are variations of it. Like the meaning changes in the way that it's used. So I'm going to start with the most basic way it's used, and give you some examples. Yolculuk için, for the trip. Yemek için, for food. Ders için, for class. Okay, so you see, için comes after the noun, and the noun doesn't change, which is nice, right? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. And in these examples, it means simply for. Okay, it can follow the pronouns, but the pronoun appear in genitive case then. So you say benim için, senin için, onun için. And we've seen this before. So for instance, bizim için means for us. And there's another common way of saying bizler için, sizler için. Bizler için means for us all. Bizim için means for us. So it's a nice, variation there. It can follow demonstratives, and in that case they appear as bunun için, şunun için. And it can follow questions, for instance, kim için or kimin için, for whom. So that's also very common. And so these are really, straightforward ways of using için. And sometimes in the way it's used, the meaning slightly changes. And I'm going to give some examples to demonstrate that. So, for instance, let's start with the basic. Yolculuk için hazırlanıyor. He's getting ready for the trip. So this is the simple way, and it's very clear. It's for. It's used for. Para için kavga ediyorlar. They're fighting for money, but actually it means because of money, right? So they are fighting because of money, and in this way için is used. 2 oda için çok kira veriyorsun. For 2 rooms, you pay too much money. So in this case, it means in exchange of. Right? So 2 oda için çok para veriyorsun. 6 ay için Türkiye'de kalacağım. I will stay in Turkey for 6 months. And in this case, it means the duration of. The duration of 6 months. 6 ay için. Yarın akşam için bir planın var mı? Do you have a plan for tomorrow night? And in this case, yarın akşam için meaning relating to, right? And then finally, bu kitabı sizin için aldım. I bought this book for you. But it actually means for the benefit of you, for the sake of you, right? Okay, so these are like things that you may see, you may hear. So that's the the nuance in meaning. But there are 2 ways that for is used in English and not in Turkish. İçin is not used in Turkish, and you should pay attention to these. So the first one, I bought this jacket for $300. You don't use için for this sentence in Turkish. You say, bu ceketi $300 aldım. You don't say $300 için. Okay? So this is number 1. The second one, I've been learning Turkish for 3 years. So in Turkish, you say 3 yıldır Türkçe öğreniyorum. You don't say 3 yıl için. So these are the most common ones, and I am pretty sure you're going to make mistakes when you want to say these sentences and you're going to use için. But of course, we're going to correct them. And when we correct them, remember this moment that I'm talking about it, okay? Of course, you're going to get used to it. So İçin is also used to express in order to when it's used with the infinitive verb. So Türkiye'ye gitmek için bilet aldım. Türkiye'ye gitmek için bir bilet aldım. I bought a ticket in order to go to Turkey. Onu görmek için İstanbul'a gitti. He went to Istanbul in order to see him. So in these cases, it means in order to. It can also be used for therefore. And for that we use onun için. So onun için means for him, for it, right? For her. But when it's used, sometimes it's used when it's used for therefore, you'll get the meaning from the context, and also here's a tip. When it's used for therefore, it's usually followed by a pause, slight pause. And so, I'll try to demonstrate in my examples now. Çok yorgunum, onun için eve döndüm. So I'm very tired, therefore I came back home. Herkes işe gitti, onun için evde kimse yok. Everybody went to work, therefore there's nobody at home. Okay? So, finally, about İçin, the question why, one of the why questions comes from İçin. Let me remind you the ones you know. Neden is why, right? Niye, also why. We have so many questions for why. So the most common one, neden, and niye is less formal. You would hear it in like speech more. But there's also niçin, and it's coming from ne için. So ne için is very formal. You rarely see it because we say niçin. Okay? So, and I mean, you may see it in here and there. Don't be surprised when people say it. It's not illegal. But most common way is niçin. All right. Now let's talk about ile, which means with or by or and. And you've seen this one before when it is attached to the nouns, which is le or la, as a case ending, right? But it is essentially a postposition, okay? And, to make it the difference, I mean, the meaning is the same, But if you want to make a difference for yourself, you can think about it as when it's written separately, it's a postposition, it's, you know, attached to a word, it can be a case ending, and that's fine, okay? So, but it's the same thing, all right? So it's a word which can act in different ways according to its place in the sentence. So, for instance, we talked about le as a case ending when it is used in this way. For instance, Ali okula bisikletle gidiyor. Bisikletle, arabayla. Remember? Or we talked about le, Osman tarihle ilgileniyor. Osman is interested in history. And so remember those. This is still the same thing, but it is written separately. Okay, ile, and it acts like İçin. Of course, the meaning is different. When it is attached to pronouns, the pronouns appear in genitive case. Benimle, seninle, bizimle, right? So again, in here too, there's bizimle, which means with us. Bizlerle means with us all. So that's kind of a, you know, difference between these two. Or sizlerle. And demonstratives, bununla, şununla. So it's very similar in that way with İçin. So let me give you a few examples how meaning is slightly different in these uses. For instance, ekmeği bıçakla kestim. I cut the bread with knife. In this sentence, it's used as you know, for the instrument, or the action I did it with this instrument, and it is similar in the similar way we use okula bisikletle gitti, right? So you're doing something with an instrument. Oraya kiminle gittin? So that is with, right? It's basically how do you know, who do you go with? That's with. It can also be used in the manner of doing an action. Evden aceleyle çıktım. So I left home in a haste. Aceleyle, in a haste. So it can be used that way. Meyveleri kiloyla satıyorlar. They are selling the fruit by kilo. And in this case, it's used for the unit that something is measured in. Bu evi almakla çok iyi ettik. We did very well to buy this house. And in this case, it's used with the infinitive. So it means, you know, with doing, by doing, right? All right, so again, we need to do lots of practice to feel comfortable, of course, as always. So you do your work and come to class prepared. Thank you. Görüşürüz.